To create a new file on the sidebar, I'll right click, select new file. It'll ask me for file name. I'll write in index.js. So it's node.js JavaScript. So the file extension must be JS. And I'll just use a simple statement which is console.log, and I'll just print on hello world. So it's a very simple output statement. What it does is it says that on the console, which is your standard output, just log the statement hello world. So it just prints the statement. Now what is important over here is how to execute a file with node. The syntax is you write in node and file name. So the syntax is node followed by a file name. In this case the file name is index.js. So you hit on enter and you get your output on the screen, which is hello world. So this is one of the reasons why it's helpful to have a terminal integrated with a dev window. You really don't need to switch stuff. You can just see the output below your code. So it really helps in developments. Now that our basic output print statement is done, let's move on to some deeper concepts. The most important, I think, is variables. You get variables with every language you use, and JavaScript is no different. So there are two ways of declaring variables in JavaScript. So I'll just have let var1 and var1, var2 rather. So these are the two ways in which you can declare variables in JavaScript. Let and var, they do have differences, the different scopes. Let is block scoped and var is function scoped. So I won't be going into differences on how exactly these two scopes are different. If you want, you can definitely read it up on the internet. But let is mostly like I'm from a Java background, and it makes sense for me to use block scopes, and it definitely helps me in development purposes, because I know that a variable will bound to the scope. Scope is nothing but a pair of curly braces. So whatever is inside a pair of curly braces like this, it falls under a scope. So a variable which is bound under this scope, if you declare let var3, so this variable is bound under this scope, you cannot reference it outside the scope. So that's how stuff works. I won't go into much details, but I'll be using let throughout the entire videos. So it's let variable 1. I'll give it a value which will be Alexa. So I'll just save it, and if I run the code, nothing will happen. So I'll just print the value, and which is var1. So now you should see two print statements: hello world, which is due to statement line 1, and Alexa, which comes from here. It prints the value of var1, which is nothing but Alexa. So this was the basic variable declarations, initializations, and just printing them. Nothing too deep. Now we'll move to an iterative concepts, aka loops. So JavaScript has two major loops, for and while. For and while. This is not a statement, this is just me explaining. So for and while, they exist in a lot of other languages as well. I won't be going to exactly how loops work. I'm assuming you know, because this is just a crash course. So I'll just write for let I equals to for let I equals 0, I less than 10, and I plus plus. So, and I'll just print the value of I in the body. So it's just I has the initial value of 0, I should be less than 10, and I is incremented by 1 for every iteration. So this one should give you a result of 0 to 9, because I should be less than 10, not less than equals. So this one will do nothing but print you the numbers 0 to 9. Now the same stuff I can do using a while loop. Before that, I'll just declare a variable j equals 0, and while j is less than 0, you should go console.log j. So it's same as both. J equals 0, I equal, like the initial values are 0, it should be less than 10. So the value should be less than 10, and what is missing in the declaration is I plus plus. So we are not changing the value of 10. So j always stays 0, and j will always fulfill this condition, which we do not want. We want to increment j, so it should be 0, then 1, then 2, then 3. So I'll just give the command j++ inside the loop body, and for clarity purposes I'll comment it out. So if you're on Visual Studio Code like me, Control / can very easily toggle and untoggle comments. This is how we define comments in JS with double slashes in the beginning. And I'll just save this file and run the same command, and you again get 0 to 9. So it's the same job using two different loops, for and while. It's worthwhile to know these different loops because you'll be using them a lot while actually working with JavaScript.